Hello, my name is Abigail Monroe, and I have chosen to do my final project on Alzheimer's disease, and specifically how that relates to heredity. The human brain has many functions and is responsible for speech, language, regulation, organ function, automatic behaviors like breathing, heart rate, perception of various sensations like pain, movement, balance, memories, emotions, thoughts, responses, and decisions. Mutations are a change in the DNA sequence of an organism. Mutations in genes or environmental factors can cause brain disorders. The American Psychological Association describes a brain disorder as any condition marked by disruption of the normal functioning of the brain. The brain disorder I'm going to discuss today is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a brain disorder that continually gets worse over time. The reason this disease is so bad is because it affects approximately 60 to 70% of the population on this planet. It is also the most common cause of dementia, which is linked to a loss in memory or forgetting things. Scientists have identified many genetic factors that are associated with Alzheimer's disease in a form called genetic variants. Genetic variants are permanent changes to a gene and can cause diseases. This means that if a person inherits a genetic variant, they could get the disease, or they will have a higher chance of getting the disease. A recent news article that I found on Alzheimer's disease talks about a new breakthrough in science. The article, by Butovsky and Colonna, is called Microglia Function in the Central Nervous System During Health and Neurodegeneration. In the article, they talk about how researchers at Oregon Health and Science University have had a breakthrough that could be positive for Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia patients in the future. Scientists have found that ferroptosis could be the cause of advancement of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's and vascular dementia patients. Ferroptosis is a new type of cell death that occurs with iron dependence and is usually shown by a large amount of accumulated iron and lipid peroxidation during cell death. One component of this that was not previously thought about was the microglia cells being vulnerable. Microglia cells are immune cells of the brain that are constantly responding to pathogens and any damage that occurs in the brain. These cells are present in the central nervous system and the spinal cord and help to regulate brain development as well. Butovsky and Colonna describe these cells as being responsible for the elimination of microbes, dead cells, redundant synapses, protein aggregates, and other particulate and soluble antigens that may endanger the central nervous system. Ferroptosis destroys microglia cells, which in turn means that any pathogens or damage that occurs in the brain are no longer being responded to by these cells, and there is no longer a regulation of brain development. What is interesting is that with this information, scientists could potentially come up with new cures for the disease if they can find a way to save microglia cells from ferroptosis. In this lecture, we will discuss what Alzheimer's disease is, the history of the disease, important people, and heredity. The driving question for this lecture, then, is what is the link to heredity and Alzheimer's disease? To understand Alzheimer's disease, we need to first understand dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. The word dementia first appeared around 600 AD when Saint Isidore used the term for the first time in his book Etymologies. The term dementia is formed from the prefix de, which means deprivation or loss, the root ment, which means mind, and the suffix ia, which indicates a state of being. In other words, dementia refers to a state out of mind. Throughout human history, dementia has been portrayed even before it was actually named. The ancient Egyptians were aware that a person's memory declined as they aged. The well-known playwright William Shakespeare portrayed dementia in his plays. Symbolically, dementia was shown in one of his characters, King Lear, and this became known as a tragedy in English literature. A doctor in France, Philippe Pinel, officially accepted the term dementia as a diagnosis in 1797. Otto Ludwig Binswanger was a Swiss researcher that conducted a study on neurosyphilis with Alois Alzheimer. He reported many different forms of vascular dementia and even coined the term presenile dementia, which Alois eventually named Binswanger's disease in the future. Alois Alzheimer was the one to discover pathological features of presenile dementia, and Emil Kraepelin eventually named Alzheimer's disease after Alois Alzheimer. Alzheimer's disease is currently linked to genetics and is highly heritable. Currently, there are 70 genetic regions that have been found to be associated with Alzheimer's. 3 of the known genes are rare variants, and 5 are very common variants. In most cases of Alzheimer's, there is not one single genetic cause, and Alzheimer's can be influenced by multiple genes. On top of this, environmental factors and lifestyle choices can affect the onset of Alzheimer's as well. A parent who carries the genetic variant of Alzheimer's disease has a 50-50 chance of passing this gene onto their children. One well-known gene is a apolipoprotein E, APOE gene. This gene is involved in making a protein that assists in carrying cholesterol and fats through the bloodstream. Alterations in this process are thought to contribute to developing Alzheimer's disease. The APOE gene comes in different forms or alleles. APOE2. If Alzheimer's occurs in a person with this allele, it usually develops later in life. APOE3. This is the most common allele and is believed to have neither a decreasing or increasing risk of Alzheimer's. This is a neutral one. APOE4. This allele is associated with an early onset of Alzheimer's disease and increases the risk for Alzheimer's. Genetic tests are available for people with strong family history of Alzheimer's disease or symptoms early in life. Results of this genetic testing will not say for sure if a person will or will not have Alzheimer's in the future. There is still so much research that needs to be done on Alzheimer's disease. Hopefully, researchers can learn more about the disease and find a cure for it in the future. As somebody with a long family history of the disease, I hope this occurs in my lifetime. Thank you.